The champagne glass trembled between my fingers, reflecting fractured golden light across my borrowed dress. The charity gala at the Astorian Hotel hummed with conversations I wasn't meant to hear, perfumes I couldn't afford, people who looked through me. I didn't belong here. I was only filling in for Mrs. Whitmore, my elderly neighbor who had fallen ill and insisted I take her invitation. "You need a night away from that dreadful diner," she'd said. The midnight blue gown she lent me whispered against my skin. Borrowed confidence. Then the weight of a gaze settled on me, heavy and deliberate. I turned. He stood half-shadowed by a floral arrangement, tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair swept back from a face carved for Renaissance marble. But it was his eyes, burning, stripping away pretense, that stole my breath. Bodyguards flanked him. The realization should have scared me. It didn't. He raised his glass slightly. I flushed and looked away. This wasn't my world. Tomorrow I'd be back in my waitress uniform at Rosie's Diner, serving coffee to truckers for 15% tips. "You look uncomfortable," a deep voice said behind me, laced with a softened European accent. I turned. Up close he was overwhelming, woodsy, expensive cologne that made me think of hidden danger. "I'm fine. Just not used to these events." His lips curved, not quite a smile. "Neither am I." He extended a hand. "Alexander Volov. Emma Carter." His hand enveloped mine, thumb brushing my knuckles before releasing. "You're not on the guest list, Emma Carter. I'm here for Margaret Whitmore. She couldn't make it. The widow." His eyes never left my face. "Stay." It wasn't a request. Before I could answer, commotion erupted at the entrance. A group of loud men entered. The air tightened like the moment before thunder. Alexander's expression turned to granite. "Who are they?" I asked. "Business competitors," he said coldly. "Excuse me." He moved toward them with lethal grace, guards flanking him. Words were exchanged, too low to hear, but the tension crackled. One younger man, slicked back hair and too many rings, Marco, gestured wildly. I should have slipped away. Instead, I drifted closer. "Disrespectful to bring your lackey here," Marco spat. "This is charity, not territory negotiation." "Yet here you are, Marco, making a scene," Alexander replied, perfectly level, somehow more threatening. Marco's face darkened. "You don't own this city, Volov." Something dangerous flashed in Alexander's eyes. The bodyguard's hands slid inside jackets. Armed, ice water hit me. Whoever Alexander Volov was, he wasn't just rich. I backed away, and my heel caught the hem of my dress. I stumbled into a waiter. A tray of canapés crashed like expensive confetti. Mortified, I dropped to gather the mess. Polished shoes appeared. A hand extended. "Alexander, leave it. The staff will handle it." He pulled me up effortlessly. Marco watched with smug interest. "Who's your new pet, Volov?" he called. "A bit plain for your taste." Alexander's grip on my hand tightened. "Apologize to the lady." Marco laughed, brittle. "Come on, it was just," I said. Alexander interrupted, soft, lethal. "Apologize to the lady." The room held its breath. Marco muttered, "No offense intended, miss." The orchestra struck up a waltz. Alexander turned to me, coldness melting into something personal. "Dance with me." Not a request. I glanced at the mess, at Marco's humiliated face. "One dance," I whispered. His hand settled possessively at my back as we moved to the floor. The chandeliers spun like captured stars. "You've made an enemy tonight," I said quietly. "Marco Ricci was my enemy long before tonight." "What kind of businessman are you, exactly?" His dark blue eyes held mine. "The successful kind, Emma Carter. The kind that makes problems disappear." A chill ran through me. I should have been terrified. Instead, I was transfixed. "Why me?" I asked as he spun me. "There are a dozen women here from your world. You were the only one who didn't want something from me," he said. "The only genuine thing in a room full of facades." The music swelled. He pulled me closer than etiquette allowed. I yielded. "And now," I breathed, "now I find myself wanting something from you." The waltz ended. His hand lingered. Thank you for the dance, Emma Carter. I should have walked away. Instead, perhaps another. Something darkly satisfied crossed his face. I thought you'd never ask. One dance became three. He kept me at his side, hand possessive at my back, introducing me to people whose names blurred. He lied smoothly when asked how we met. Emma is a friend of Margaret Whitmore's. I've been trying to convince her for some time. Later, on the balcony, Marco stumbled out drunk. Volkov's new toy, left all alone. Victor stepped between us. Marco sneered. Ask him about Natalia. Alexander appeared like a storm. Marco wilted and fled on the balcony alone. Who is Natalia? Marco speaks of things he doesn't understand. That's not an answer. No, he agreed, stepping close. There are things about me you shouldn't know, Emma. Things that would make you run if you were wise. Then why single me out? Because when I saw you trying so hard to disappear, I recognized something. You're trapped, just as I am. Different cages, perhaps, but cages nonetheless. His knuckles brushed my cheek. Electricity. I'm not trapped. I lied. His smile held no humor. Try walking away. See how far you get before you turn around.
He was right.
Something had clicked the moment our eyes met. His car took me home. He insisted on coming. In the Bentley, privacy partition up. Tell me about yourself, Emma Carter. There's not much to tell. Waitress. Barely making rent. Parents died when I was 19. Alone. His eyes darkened with something like recognition. Have dinner with me tomorrow. What time?
7.
The car will be waiting. At my building. Sweet dreams, Emma Carter. 2 texts from an unknown number. Until tomorrow. Don't overthink it. I stared at the city night, feeling watched. A gilded cage had just closed with the softest click. Morning brought harsh clarity, and Mrs. Whitmore at my door, face tight with fear. Everyone knows you went to his home last night. That's the problem. She glanced at the black sedan across the street. Those are Alexander's men. Watching you. My stomach dropped. She told me everything. 30 years ago, she had been me. Young server, noticed by male Volov, moved into his house, dressed by him, possessed by him. She escaped only because she was pregnant with another man's child and damaged goods. Alexander is not his father, she said, but the apple rarely falls far. Then the bombshell. Marco Ricci was found half dead in the river last night. Mugged. Officially, Alexander had left dinner abruptly for business that couldn't wait. My phone buzzed. Good morning, Emma. Car at noon for lunch. Wear the green dress again, Mrs. Whitmore. He's summoning you. What will you do? 3 hours to choose. Safe obscurity or dangerous possibility, the knock. A woman in a black suit delivered a box. Emerald silk dress. Perfect fit. Card. Something to match your eyes. At noon the Bentley waited. Victor. The surveillance has been reassigned. Mr. Volov called them off an hour ago. Small concession. Huge meaning. Lunch was in a private room at Luciano's. Alexander rose when I entered, eyes devouring the dress. You came. I have conditions, I said. No surveillance. No surprise gifts. Complete honesty about Marco. He agreed to the first 3. On Marco. Unknown assailants. Dangerous area. That's the story you maintain. I pushed. He shut me down gently but firmly. Some things must stay separate for my protection. What do you want from me? Everything. Your time, trust, body, heart. Move in with me. Not as a possession, as my partner. I asked for time. He offered a compromise. 1 week at his house. At the end, I could leave. No pressure, no surveillance. 1 week. That night we collected my few belongings. He gave me an entire suite connected to his bedroom. Privacy when I wanted, him when I desired. No more interruptions, he promised, clearing his schedule. We made love like the world was ending. He learned my body with reverent hunger. I learned the taste of power and surrender. Days blurred into bliss. Private museum tours. Restaurants where staff knew him by name. Nights of pleasure I never imagined. But reality leaked in. Closed-door calls. Men arriving at odd hours. Conversations stopping when I entered. I kept my eyes open, as Mrs. Whitmore warned. I learned names, patterns, hierarchies. I found a photograph in his desk. Alexander with a stunning blonde. Natalia, Marco had said. Victor confirmed. Former fiancé, Antonio Ricci's niece. She decided the life wasn't for her. Relocated to Perth. The emphasis on Perth felt like both explanation and warning that on the fifth night, rain against the windows, I asked about Marco again. Alexander tensed. He's recovering. Some memory loss. Convenient with head trauma. I pressed about Natalia. Silence. Then, our engagement was a peace treaty with the Ricci family. Not love. She wanted access I wouldn't give. She acquired information another way, pillow talk, and passed it to her uncle. What happened to her? Nothing. I ended it. Generous settlement. She chose Perth. Relief and fear. Exile or worse? I would never betray you, I whispered. I know, he said with absolute certainty. You want me. Just me. He kissed away the questions. 2 days left of our week, did I, and the gray dawn. His arm tightened around me in sleep. I had already chosen. Ask me again, I said when he woke. Move in with me. Be my partner, my equal, my love. Yes. His kiss was triumph and tenderness. I'll have your things moved today. We'll celebrate tonight. Wait, I said. I accept your world. But I won't be Natalia gathering secrets in your bed, and I won't be Mrs. Whitmore, a possession. I'll be your partner, but I keep my boundaries, my principles. Something shifted in his eyes, respect. Partners, he agreed. 3 months later, almost nothing remained of the old Emma Carter. My tiny East Ridge apartment had been emptied in a single morning. The few cardboard boxes that held my entire life barely filled the trunk of one of Alexander's cars. Rosie, my boss at the diner, had cried when she opened the envelope I'd slipped under the counter with a simple note. Thank you for giving me a family when I no longer had one. She hugged me as if I were her daughter leaving for another continent. I never set foot in Rosie's diner again. I now lived in the house on the riverbank, the one architecture magazines called the Vulev's Fortress of Glass and Steel.
To me, it was simply home.
The staff called me Miss Emma with a deference that still made me uncomfortable, but I had learned to smile, to say thank you, to give orders without raising my voice. Alexander said I had the natural grace of a queen who needs no crown to be obeyed. I had laid down my rules, and he respected every single one. And bodyguards glued to my side unless there was real, proven danger. I kept my friendship with Mrs. Whitmore, even though she had once been his father's mistress. A portion of the money he transferred to me each month, a sum that still made my head spin, went to my foundation, a discreet shelter for battered women, complete with lawyers, psychologists, and vocational training. Alexander had signed the first check without asking a single question. In return, I had become his compass in the storm. There were nights when he came home with trembling hands full of adrenaline, eyes too bright, jaw clenched. He never told me exactly what had happened, but I had learned to read the signs. A rival who had crossed the red line, a shipment lost at sea, a message sent to anyone foolish enough to test the new king. On those nights, I waited for him in the study, one lamp burning low, a glass of pure vodka in my hand. He never spoke. He simply rested his head on my shoulder, breathed in my scent like a drowning man gulps air, and little by little the beast inside him quieted. You are the only clean thing in my life, Emma, he sometimes whispered against my temple. Never ask me to stain you. I didn't ask. I watched, I listened, I understood that I had learned the names that made his lieutenants go pale. I had memorized the ports where the gray containers passed unchecked. I knew which judge took envelopes, which commissioner looked the other way, which bank laundered money without asking questions. I was not naive. Part of the fortune that paid for my silk dresses and the diamonds at my ears came from blood and fear. But another part funded anonymous pediatric hospitals, scholarships for dockworkers' children, and my women's shelter. Alexander never justified himself. He acted. And I had chosen to stand at his side, eyes wide open. One December evening, 6 months after I moved in, we hosted the annual Volov charity gala. This time, I was the one receiving. Black backless gown, diamonds in my ears, hair in a severe chignon. I had become a master at smiling at people who would have spat on me 6 months earlier. In a moment of quiet, I overheard a conversation behind the half-open study door. Dmitri, Alexander's right-hand man for 20 years, spoke in a low voice. "She's changed you, Alec. I don't recognize you anymore. You hesitate where your father would have cut clean." Alexander, back to the door, answered in a voice so calm it was terrifying. "I'm not hesitating, Dmitri. I'm choosing better. Before, I cut off heads to prove I could. Now I keep them alive, so they work for me."
She taught me that.
She sees farther than vengeance. She sees balance. Silence. A waitress, Alec. You're risking everything for a waitress. I held my breath. Alexander laughed, a low, almost tender sound. This waitress looks at me like I'm a man, not a monster. She touches me like she wants to heal the parts of me my father burned. She stays even though she knows everything. Do you have any idea what that's worth, Dmitri? It's rarer than every diamond in the world. I slipped away before they could notice me, my heart pounding. Later, in our bedroom, I was removing my earrings in front of the mirror. Alexander appeared behind me, arms around my waist, chin on my shoulder. "Are you happy?" he asked, exactly as he had the first time I turned in his arms. "I'm terrified every single day," I confessed. "Terrified you'll get hurt. Terrified that one day you'll have to choose between your empire and me. Terrified that one morning you'll look at me and realize I'm not worth the price you're paying." He pressed his forehead to mine. "And yet you stay. And yet I stay. Because when I'm with you, I feel more alive than I ever have. Because you look at me like I'm the only thing that matters in this house full of gold and secrets. Because even if your world is dark, you are my light inside it." He kissed me then, slowly, deeply, like a man thanking heaven for a miracle he never thought he'd receive. "You are my redemption, Emma Carter," he breathed against my lips. "And I will spend the rest of my life earning the fact that you chose to stay." I smiled into the darkness. "You don't have to earn me, Alexander Volov. You just have to keep choosing me every day. The way I choose you." He lifted me into his arms, carried me to the bed where we had already spent so many nights discovering and taming each other. That night there was no urgency, no possession, only infinite tenderness, almost sacred. He made love to me the way one prays, with reverence, gratitude, and the absolute certainty that what you hold is a miracle. Much later, as winter rain drummed against the huge bay windows and his steady breathing brushed my neck, I thought back to that very first evening. T.O. the girl in a borrowed dress, who didn't dare dream of champagne. T.O. the way a single look across a ballroom had overturned 2 lives. I was no longer that girl. I had become the woman who held a king's heart in her hands and had learned to protect it better than all his bodyguards combined. I had become the woman who turned a monster into a man, not by changing him, but by showing him he could be both without losing his soul. And he had given me a kingdom, not a golden, spotless one, but a kingdom with its shadows, its storms, its merciless laws, but a kingdom where, for the first time in my life, I was no longer alone, where I was loved not in spite of what I knew, but precisely because I knew everything and stayed. Anyway, I closed my eyes, pressed the arm he had wrapped around my waist a little tighter, and whispered into the dark, "Dance with me." He tightened his hold in his sleep, as if answering yes, and we kept dancing, not on a marble floor beneath crystal chandeliers, but in the silence of our bedroom, to the rhythm of 2 hearts that had chosen to beat as one, in spite of everything, against everything, forever, eyes wide open, because that was how we loved, and that was how we would live, until the very last step.